The Old Swiss Confederacy was a precursor of the modern state of Switzerland. It was a loose confederation of independent small states which formed during the 14th century. From a nucleus in what is now central Switzerland, the Confederacy expanded to include the cities of Zurich and Berne by the middle of the century. This formed a rare union of rural and urban communes, all of which enjoyed imperial immediacy in the Holy Roman Empire. This confederation of 8 cantons was politically and militarily successful for more than a century, culminating in the Burgundy Wars of the 1470s, which established it as a power in the complicated political landscape dominated by France and the Habsburgs. Its success resulted in the addition of more confederates, increasing the number of cantons to 13 by 1513. The Confederacy pledged neutrality in 1515 and 1647, although many Swiss served privately as mercenaries in the Italian Wars and during the early modern period. After the Swabian War of 1499, the Confederacy was a de facto independent state throughout the early modern period, although still nominally part of the Holy Roman Empire until 1648. The Swiss Reformation divided the Confederates into Reformed and Catholic parties, resulting in internal conflict from the 16th to the 18th centuries. As a result, the Federal Diet was often paralyzed by hostility between the factions. The Swiss Confederacy fell to invasion by the French Revolutionary Army in 1798, after which it became the short-lived Helvetic Republic. Name: the adjective old was introduced after the Napoleonic era with ancient regime. Retronyms distinguishing the pre-Napoleonic from the restored Confederation. During its existence, the Confederacy was known as Eidgenossenschaft or Eignerschaft, in reference to treaties among cantons. This term was first used in the 1370 Pfaffenbrief. Territories of the Confederacy came to be known collectively as Schweizerland, with the English Switzerland beginning during the mid-16th century. For that time, the Confederacy was seen as a single state, also known as the Swiss Republic after the fashion of calling individual urban cantons republics. History. Foundation. The nucleus of the Old Swiss Confederacy was an alliance among the valley communities of the Central Alps to facilitate management of common interests and ensure peace along trade routes through the mountains. The foundation of the Confederacy is marked by the Rutlischwar of the 1315 Pact of Brannan. Since 1889, the Federal Charter of 1291 among the rural communes of Uri, Schweiz, and Unterwalden has been considered the founding document of the Confederacy. Federation growth. The initial pact was augmented by pacts with the cities of Lucerne, Zurich, and Berne. This union of rural and urban communes, which enjoyed the status of imperial immediacy within the Holy Roman Empire, was engendered by pressure from Habsburg dukes and kings who had ruled much of the land. In several battles with Habsburg armies, the Swiss were victorious. They conquered the rural areas of Glarus and Zug, which became members of the Confederacy. From 1353 to 1481, the Federation of 8 cantons, known in German as the Schacht, consolidated its position. The members enlarged the territory at the expense of local counts, primarily by buying judicial rights but sometimes by force. The Eidgenossenschaft, as a whole, expanded through military conquest. The Aargau was conquered in 1415 and the Thurgau in 1460. In both cases, the Swiss profited from weakness in the Habsburg dukes. In the south, Uri led a military territorial expansion that would by 1515 lead to the conquest of the Ticino. None of these territories became members of the Confederacy. They had the status of condominiums. At this time, the 8 cantons gradually increased their influence on neighboring cities and regions through additional alliances. Individual cantons cantons concluded pacts with Fribourg, Appenzell, Schaffhausen, the Abbot and the city of St. Gallen, Biel, Rottweil, Mulhouse and others. These allies became closely associated with the Confederacy, but were not accepted as full members. The Burgundy Wars prompted a further enlargement of the Confederacy. Fribourg and Solothurn were accepted in 1481. In the Swabian War against Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I, the Swiss were victorious and exempted from imperial legislation. The associated cities of Basel and Schaffhausen joined the Confederacy as a result of that conflict, and Appenzell followed suit in 1513 as the 13th member. The Federation of 13 cantons constituted the Old Swiss Confederacy until its demise in 1798. The expansion of the Confederacy was stopped by the Swiss defeat in the 1515 Battle of Marignano. Only Bern and Fribourg were still able to conquer the Vaud in 1536. The latter primarily became part of the canton of Bern, with a small portion under the jurisdiction of Fribourg. Reformation. The Reformation in Switzerland led to doctrinal division amongst the cantons. Zurich, Bern, Basel, Schaffhausen and associates Biel, Mulhouse, Neuchâtel, Geneva and the city of St. Gallen became Protestant. Other members of the Confederation and the Valley remained Catholic. In Glarus, Appenzell, in the Grisons and in most condominiums both religions coexisted. Appenzell split in 1597 into a Catholic Appenzell Inner Roads and a Protestant Appenzell Outer Roads. The division led to civil war in separate alliances with foreign powers by the Catholic and Protestant factions, but the Confederacy as a whole continued to exist. A common foreign policy was blocked, however, by the impasse. During the 30 Years' War, religious disagreements among the cantons kept the Confederacy neutral and spared it from belligerence. At the Peace of Westphalia, the Swiss delegation was granted formal recognition of the Confederacy as a state independent of the Holy Roman Empire. Early modern period growing social differences and an increasing absolutism in the city cantons during the ancient regime led to local popular revolts and uprising during the post-war depression. After the 30 Years' War escalated to the Swiss Peasant War of 1653 in Lucerne, Bern, Basel, Solothurn and the Aargau. The revolt was put down swiftly by force and with the help of many cantons. Religious differences were accentuated by a growing economic discrepancy. The Catholic, predominantly rural central Swiss cantons were surrounded by Protestant cantons with increasingly commercial economies. The politically dominant cantons were Zurich and Berne, but the Catholic cantons were influential since the Second War of Kappel in 1531. A 1655 attempt to restructure the federation was blocked by Catholic opposition, which led to the First Battle of Vilmergen in 1656. The Catholic Party won, cementing the status quo. The problems remained unsolved, erupting again in 1712 with the Second Battle of Vilmergen. This time the Protestant cantons won, dominating the Confederation. True reform, however, was impossible. The individual interests of the 13 members were too diverse, and the absolutist cantonal governments resisted all attempts at confederation-wide administration. Foreign policy remained fragmented. Collapse attempting to gain control of key Alpine passes and establish a buffer against hostile monarchies. France first invaded associates of the Swiss Confederation. Part of the bishopric of Basel was absorbed by France in 1793. In 1797, Napoleon annexed the Valtellina into the new Cisalpine Republic in northern Italy and invaded the southern remainder of the Bishopric of Basel. In 1798, the Confederacy was invaded by the French Revolutionary Army at the invitation of the Republican faction in Vaud, led by Frédéric Coutessard de la Harpe. Vaud was under Berne's control, but chafed under a government with a different language and culture. The ideals of the French Revolution found a receptive audience in Vaud, and when Vaud declared itself a republic, the French had a pretext to invade the Confederation. The invasion was largely peaceful, and the collapse of the Confederacy was due more to internal strife than external pressure. Only Berne put up an effective resistance, but after its defeat in the March Battle of Grauholz it capitulated. The canton of Berne was divided into the canton of Oberland and the canton of Allier-Maine. The Helvetic Republic was proclaimed on 12 April 1798 as one and indivisible, abolishing cantonal sovereignty and feudal rights and reducing the cantons to administrative districts. This system was unstable due to widespread opposition, and the Helvetic Republic collapsed as a result of the Steklerkrieg. A federalist compromise solution was attempted, but conflict between the federalist elite and Republican subjects persisted until the formation of the federal state in 1848. Structure. The Eidgenossenschaft was initially united not by a single pact but by overlapping pacts and bilateral treaties between members. The parties generally agreed to preserve the peace, aid in military endeavors and arbitrate disputes. Slowly, the members began to see the Confederation as a unifying entity. In the Pfaffenbrief, a treaty of 1370 among 6 of the 8 members forbidding feuds and denying clerical courts jurisdiction over the Confederacy, the cantons for the first time used the term Eidgenossenschaft. The first treaty uniting the 8 members of the Confederacy was the Sempachner Brief of 1393, concluded after victories over the Habsburgs at Sempach in 1386 and Naffels in 1388, which forbade a member from unilaterally beginning a war without the consent of the other cantons. A federal diet, the Tagsatzung, developed during the 15th century. Pacts and renewals of earlier alliances reinforced the Confederacy. The individual interests of the cantons clashed in the Old Zurich War, caused by territorial conflict among Zurich and the central Swiss cantons over the succession of the Count of Toggenburg. Although Zurich entered an alliance with the Habsburg dukes, it then rejoined the Confederacy. The Confederation had become so close political alliance that it no longer tolerated separatist tendencies in its members. The Tagsatzung was the Confederation Council, typically meeting several times a year. Each canton delegated 2 representatives. The canton where the delegates met initially chaired the gathering, but during the 16th century Zurich permanently assumed the chair and Baden became the seat. The Tagsatzung dealt with intercantonal affairs and was the court of last resort in disputes between member states, imposing sanctions on dissenting members. It also administered the condominiums. The reeves were delegated for 2 years, each time by a different canton. A unifying treaty of the Old Swiss Confederacy was the Stanzeverkomnis of 1481. Conflicts between rural and urban cantons and disagreements over the bounty of the Burgundian Wars had led to skirmishes. The city-states of Fribourg and Solothurn wanted to join the Confederacy, but were distrusted by the central Swiss rural cantons. The compromise by the Tagsatzung in the Stanzeverkomnis restored order and assuaged the rural cantons' complaints, with Fribourg and Solothurn accepting accepted into the Confederation. While the treaty restricted freedom of assembly, it reinforced agreements amongst the cantons in the earlier Sempachterbrief and Pfaffenbrief. The civil war during the Reformation ended in a stalemate. The Catholic cantons could block council decisions but, due to geographic and economic factors, could not prevail over the Protestant cantons. Both factions began to hold separate councils, still meeting at a common Tagsatzung. The Catholic cantons were excluded from administering the condominiums in the Aargau, the Thurgau and the Rhine Valley. In the place, Berne became co-sovereign of these regions. Territories. Cantons. The Confederation expanded in several stages. First to the 8 cantons, in 1481 to 10, in 1501 to 12 and finally to 13 cantons. The founding cantons were Uri, founding canton named in the Federal Charter of 1291. Schwyz, founding canton named in the Federal Charter of 1291, Unterwalden, founding canton named in the Federal Charter of 1291. The 14th century saw expansion to the Untitled Genossenschaft following the battles of Morgarten and Laupen, Lucerne, city canton since 1332. Zurich, city canton since 1351. Glarus, rural canton since 1352. Zug, city canton since 1352. Bern, city canton since 1353. The 15th century was marked by expansion to the Zurich Genossenschaft after the Burgundian Wars. Fribourg, city canton since 1481. Solothurn, city canton since 1481. The 16th century expansion to the Dreißigjährige Genossenschaft followed the Swabian War. Basel, city canton since 1501. Schaffhausen, city canton since 1501. Appenzell, rural canton since 1513. Associates were close allies of the Old Swiss Confederacy, connected to the Union by treaties with all of the members of the Confederacy. Close associates. 3 of the associates were known as Engere Zugwante, Biel 1344-82 treaties with Fribourg, Bern and Solothurn. Nominally, Biel was subject to the bishopric of Basel. Imperial Abbey of St. Gallen 1451 treaty with Schwyz, Lucerne, Zurich and Glarus renewed in 1479 and 1490. Imperial City of St. Gallen 1454 treaty with Schwyz, Lucerne, Zurich, Glarus, Zug and Berne. Eternal associates. 2 federations were known as Uejmiedverbundet, Ziebens and Den. An independent federation in the Valais became a Zugwante in 1416 through an alliance with Uri, Unterwalden and Lucerne, followed by a treaty with Bern in 1446. The 3 leagues were independent federations in the Grisons which became associated with the Old Swiss Confederacy in 1497–98 with the Swabian War. The 3 leagues concluded an alliance with Bern in 1602. The Grey League entered an alliance with 7 of the old 8 cantons in 1497. The League of God's House followed suit a year later. The League of the 10 Jurisdictions, the 3rd of the leagues, entered an alliance with Zurich and Glarus in 1590. Protestant associates. The Wörter Evangelische Zugwante, Imperial City of Mulhouse, concluded a treaty with several cantons in 1466, became an associate in 1515 through a treaty with all 13 members of the Confederacy, remaining so until the French Revolutionary Wars in 1797. Imperial City of Geneva 1536 Treaty with Berne and 1584 Treaty with Zurich and Berne. Remaining associates County of Neuchâtel 1406 and 1526 Treaties with Berne and Solothurn 1495 Treaty with Fribourg and 1501 Treaty with Lucerne. Imperial Valley of Ursa and 1317 Treaty with Uri, annexed by Uri in 1410. Weges 1332–1380 by treaties with Uri, Schweiz, and Tlawaldin and Lucerne, annexed by Lucerne in 1480. Merton 1353 Treaty with Berne, became a confederal condominium in 1475. Payen 1353 Treaty with Berne, annexed by Berne in 1536. Vote of Bellinzona 1407 Treaty with Uri and Obwalden, became confederal condominium in 1419–22. County of Sargans 1437 Treaty with Glarus and Schweiz, became confederal condominium in 1483. Barony of Saxe-Forstig 1458 Treaty with Zurich, annexed by Zurich in 1615. Stein am Rhein 1459 by treaty with Zurich and Schaffhausen, annexed by Zurich in 1484. County of Gruyere, allied with Fribourg and Berne since the early 14th century, became full associate of the Confederation in 1548. When the counts fell into bankruptcy in 1555, the county was partitioned into Lower Gruyere 1475 Treaty with Fribourg, Upper Gruyere 1403 Treaty with Berne, annexed by Berne in 1555. Imperial Valley of San and Imperial Valley of Château d'Oix, County of Württemberg 1493 Treaty with Lucerne, annexed by Glarus in 1517. Imperial City of Rottweil 1519–1632 through treaties with all 13 members. A first treaty had been concluded in 1463. In 1632 the treaty was renewed with Lucerne, Uri, Schweiz, and Tlawaldin, Solothurn and Fribourg. Bishopric of Basel 1579–1735 by treaty with Lucerne, Uri, Schweiz, and Tlawaldin, Solothurn and Fribourg. Condominiums were territories under the administration of several cantons. They were governed by reeves delegated for 2 years, each time from a different responsible canton. Berne initially did not participate in the administration of some of the eastern condominiums, since it had no part in their conquest and its interests were focused on the western border. In 1712 Berne replaced the Catholic cantons in the administration of the Freiämter, the Thurgau, the Rhine Valley, and Sargans, and the Catholic cantons were excluded from administering of the county of Baden. German territories. The German territories were generally governed by the Acht until 1712, when Berne joined the sovereign powers. Freiämter, conquered in 1415, partitioned in 1712 into Upper Freiam, governed by the Acht, Lower Freiam, governed by Zurich, Berne and Glarus. County of Baden, conquered 1415, after 1712 governed by Zurich, Berne and Glarus. County of Sargans 1460–83. Landgraviate of Thurgau 1460. Vote of Rheintal 1490 by the Acht with the Imperial Abbey of St. Gall. Appenzell added in 1500, Berne added in 1712. Italian territories. Several territories were known as Transmontane territories. In 1440, Uri conquered the Levantina Valley from the Visconti. Some of this territory had previously been annexed between 1403 and 1422. Further territories were acquired in 1500. 3 territories, all now in the Ticino, were condominiums of the forest cantons of Uri, Schweiz and Nidwalden. Vote of Blenio 1477–80 and after 1495. Vote of Rivera 1403–22 and after 1495. Vote of Bellinzona after 1500. 4 other Ticinese territories were condominiums of the Zwölfte after 1512. Land vote of Valmaggia. Land vote of Lugano. Land vote of Locarno. Land vote of Mendrisio. Another 3 territories were condominiums of the Zwölfte after 1512, but were lost from the Confederacy 3 years later and are now commune of Lombardy and Piedmont. Travaglia, Cuvio, Central. 2-party condominiums Votian of Berne and Fribourg County of Grasburg-Schwarzenberg after 1423. Merton after 1475, Grandson after 1475, Orbianet Challens after 1475, Votian of Glarus and Schwyz County of Usnik 1437, Lordship of Wintergaster 1438, Lordship of Hohensaxe-Gams 1497. Third-party condominium Shire of Tessenberg 1388, Protectorates Bellelay Abbey, Protectorate of Berne, Biel and Solothurn after 1414, nominally under the jurisdiction of the Bishopric of Basel, Einsiedeln Abbey, Protectorate of Schwyz after 1357. Engelberg Abbey, Protectorate of Lucerne, Uri, Schwyz and Unterwalden after 1425. Urgell, Protectorate of Biel, Bienne under military jurisdiction after 1335, also subject to the Bishopric of Basel. Imperial Abbey of St. Gallen, Protectorate of Schwyz, Lucerne, Zurich and Glarus after 1451. Republic of Gusau, an independent village allied with Schwyz after 1332. Lucerne, Uri and Unterwalden were also protecting powers. Maudia Granville Abbey, Protectorate of Berne after 1486, also subject to the Bishopric of Basel and the Holy Roman Empire. Lenoyville, Protectorate of Berne after 1388, also subject to the Bishopric of Basel. Pfaffers Abbey, Protectorate of the Acht Orte after 1460, annexed to County of Sargans 1483. Rapperswil, Protectorate of Uri, Schwyz, Unterwalden and Glarus after 1464, of Zurich, Berne and Glarus after 1712. County of Toggenburg, Protectorate of Schwyz and Glarus after 1436, and of Zurich and Berne after 1718, also subject to St. Gallen Abbey. Separate subjects. Some territories were subjects of the following cantons or associates: Uri Valley of Leventina, Valley of Urserin, Schwyz Küsnacht, Einsiedeln Abbey, March, Ho, Glarus County of Württemberg, annexed by Lucerne 1485, by Glarus 1517. Republic of Valley Street Maurice, Munthy, Nandaz Raymons, Port Valley Virnaz, Logental, the 5 Uppers and Den. 3 Leagues Bormio, Chiavenna, the Valtellina, Drapleven, Meienfeld, also member of the League of the 10 Jurisdictions.